Hello and welcome to part 2 of the Ladies Bifold Checkbook Wallet pattern from Rachel Stout Designs. I did want to touch base really quickly. The last video ended with us putting snap tabs in, and I just want to make sure that you install those the correct way. The female ends are going to be pointing outward, and these rounded pieces are going to be tucked inside of the pocket. Then that way that closure will snap shut, and then you have a nice closed shut. Now we're going to put this aside because we will not be using this until the very last part of this video series. The next thing that we're going to deal with is our vinyl piece, and I've cut the vinyl end pieces according to the size in the pattern, and we're going to do just a simple bias tape fold, the two ends to the middle and then fold it over again. We're going to give that a good press with our iron. We're going to put it on the edge of the vinyl, and then we're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch as close as we can to that, not the outer seam, the inside seam, 1/8 of an inch. And we're going to do that for both sides, and then I'll meet you back here. Okay, so before we sew our seam, I just want to take a minute to tell you that clear vinyl is, well, it's not a knit. Once you make a hole in it, the hole stays forever. So what you want to do is use the largest stitch that you have for the vinyl when you top stitch across here. Alright, I'll meet you back here in just a minute. Okay, so once you have top stitched on the insides, I'm going to trim off the excess. There's always just a little bit. Cut our strings. Okay, now we're going to set this aside until we complete the next step, which is assembly of our card slot pockets. You will need these extra long pieces, and I always like to take off the selvage edges. You really want this edge as straight as possible, because if you start straight, then you usually stay straight. The easiest way I've found to do these is to start at the end, and first thing you will do is, for the very first pocket you're going to make, you're going to go down 4.5 inches. So, 4.5 inches. Let's get a little closer so you can see it better. Okay, so 4.5 inches. And then we're going to come up 3 inches. And that gives us just a little bit of extra room to include that seam, that final seam at the end. So we're going to go up to 3 inches. And normally what I do is I do this on my ironing board, and when I measure up 3 inches, I will go ahead and press it so I have that seam set. And then from each pocket after this, we're going to measure from the pocket we just did, and we're going to go down 3.5 inches on each pocket, and we're going to come up 3 inches. That way, each pocket has a 1/2 inch top on it. We're going to make 5 pockets for one of the card slots, and we're going to do 6 pockets on the other. The card slot that has 5 pockets is the one that is going to have the vinyl ID holder on it. So I'm going to go ahead and measure these, and I'm going to iron them, and when I meet you back here, we will have all of our card pockets completed, and we will be ready to put the vinyl piece on these card pockets. Okay, now we have the card pockets totally done. You can top stitch with the 1/8 of an inch top stitch with the top of each one of these card slots, but I usually don't. It does make it look a little bit more decorative, so that is your prerogative. The next step is to measure where we want to place our vinyl ID pocket, and it's going to go, like I said, in the one with the 5 cards. And grab a ruler here, and it's going to go from the top of the very last card slot. We're going to measure down 3/4 of an inch, and that is where we're going to put the end that will stay open, so we can slide the card or ID inside. Okay, when I get that done, I like to clip it, because you cannot pin vinyl. Once you make a hole, there is a hole there forever, like I said. Now, once we get that done, we're going to do a top stitch just to secure it at the very end of this vinyl ID piece, and it's going to be about an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so I'll see you back here. Okay, so once we finish the seam on this is going to be still not attached to the sides yet. We're going to take our smaller pieces and we're going to flip them so that the edges match up. And I've already trimmed the card slot piece, but I have not trimmed the other. I mean the ID piece, but I haven't trimmed the other card slot piece yet. And then we're going to pin, and we're going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down this line. And I could do 2 at a time, so you want to line it up from the top, because the top is where we measured from. So this is going to go, and then I'm going to cut the excess off right as straight as I can. Get rid of that. I'm going to go ahead and pin this one as well, and I'm going to sew both of them at the same time as I go over to the sewing machine. The card slots themselves get kind of thick, so just pace yourself and go slowly. And one thing you really want to remember is when you're dealing with the pleats that you have made, this is the bottom side, you really want to try to feed the machine through the opposite side, so this is on the wrong side. We want our machine to go down through like this, so the pleats are going with the way we're sewing instead of against it. So this, now, if you look at it right here, when I start sewing, I'm going to sew down this seam, and I'm going to sew with the pleats in the same direction that I'm sewing. So there's no chance that they're going to get all messed up. And on this one, it looks like nope, I'm good on that one. Okay, so once you have sewn these, we will come back and we will work on putting the other pocket on the other side. Okay, so I've sewed my seams. As you can see, they're sewed. Before I open this up and press it and top stitch, though, I'm going to take the larger pocket pieces and I'm going to place them on this side. And I can sew totally through them and not have to sew through this at all, which is why we do the smaller one first. Then when we get done with sewing all through them, we are going to open them both up. We're going to give them a good press, as long as it's not the one with the vinyl ID holder. And we are going to top stitch all the way across. So, let's see here. And you also want to pin this in a way that it will also sew with the direction that you're sewing, because you don't want it to flip the pleats up when you're doing this either. So pay special attention to the orientation of how the pleats are going and how you're going to sew. Okay, so we have both of our seams for the card slot pockets sewn. So we'll start with this pocket. What we're going to do is we're going to open it up with the right side facing down. We want to open these seams up, and we want the seams to point toward the outside. And this one toward the outside. That opens that seam up very nicely so we can get it flat. If you need to, you can press from this side. I would just be very, very careful not to melt your vinyl on the other side. Some irons can get really hot. Okay, once we've done that, we're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch all the way down on this side, and also on this side, all the way down. Now, if you have gotten your pockets just a little bit crooked, a way to fix that is to just add a little bit more right there, and instead of having crooked pockets, you've now evened them up. And when you top stitch them, they will hold that place. They'll stay right there. Okay, so we're going to do this one, and we're also going to do the other card slot pocket. And when we're done with that, we'll come back here and finish the next step. Okay, so now that we've top stitched both sides, we are going to move on to the next step, which is to fold these in half. And we want the final cut to be about 4 inches, but a little less would be okay as well. We're going to fold it over on the seam only, which means it's going to be about 1/2 inch. And then we're also going to do one top stitch all the way down on the edge of this. We're going to do the same thing for this side. And we want to make sure that that's only about 1/2 inch border right there. Then we're going to top stitch all the way down. When we get done with that, we're going to come back and we're going to trim all the excess up and down to about 4 inches, and usually it works out that way if you haven't done too many seam allowances or too few. So it looks like I will have just a little bit here to cut off, but that should be fine. I really actually like to do about 3 3/4 of an inch, because you will have, the way the wallet folds, you'll need a little bit of room there so the wallet can actually fold. So 3 3/4, even 3 1/2 is okay to cut it down to. It's absolutely your preference as to how fat you want to pack your wallet. So I will meet you back here when we're done. Okay, so I have trimmed these down. They are trimmed on the back, they're trimmed on the front, they're top stitched, and they are ready to go onto the inside portion of the wallet. And what I like to do is fold this in half, just like it will be. And we're going to do a basting stitch all the way across all 3 layers. There's this layer, there's the back layer, and then there's also the layer of the actual lining piece. So we're going to do that, and then I'll see you back here. Okay, once you have basted on, you are going to go to the next step, which is actually going to be part 3. We're going to do the zipper pocket, and then we will be putting the entire bag assembly together. So until next time, and catch part 3. Thank you.